The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
Well, tonight, a medical marijuana bill, another one, is moving a step closer to becoming law here in Georgia. Lawmakers overwhelmingly passed the measure in the House today, but supporters are disappointed since one of the main things that they wanted was pulled at the last minute. Our Duffy Dixon is following it. She joins us now from the state capitol with the very latest on what happened. Duffy?
As you see compromise in the state house, well, this is what happens. Proponents not getting everything they wanted. But in reality, this is probably the only way they were able to get it passed. Just 8 representatives voted against the medical marijuana bill, meaning it now moves on to the Senate.
It's never too early to start working on the Senate.
It is crossover day for them as well.
The bill's backer personally gave families affected the good news.
We're moving the ball forward. We've provided access to 6 more conditions, folks with 6 more conditions, so that's a good thing. But we still have some work to do.
There are now more than a dozen diagnoses that can be treated with cannabis oil, including PTSD, autism, HIV, and Tourette's. But a main provision of the bill was yanked late last week, allowing the cultivation of cannabis in Georgia.
In order to have true access, we need in-state cultivation. We need access to safe, reliable, tested products here in Georgia.
While the bill now allows shipments of cannabis oil into Georgia, many parents like Vince Sievert are still stuck.
My daughter uses a product that has 3% THC in it. So we have to go to another state and break their law and then break federal laws to bring it back.
The issue of cultivation died because some are convinced that creates a slippery slope to allow recreational marijuana use at some point.
My heart says vote yes. Maybe you can provide hope for someone. My head and my gut say we're going down the wrong road.
The people behind this bill insist that won't happen, not under their watch.
I will fight with just as much passion to block legalization of marijuana for recreational use as I fought for these families to have access to it here in Georgia.
The medical marijuana bill now goes to the Senate, where it's expected to have an even tougher fight. Back to you.
All right, Duffy, thank you. We've been covering the medical marijuana issue since the very beginning. For a look back at the fight, including interviews with families about how cannabis oil has dramatically helped their ailing children, go to 11alive.com and look for the story there on our home.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Yeah, doggy. Welcome once again to the Full Melt Show. I'm your host, Steve Green. Pissed off as normal. Why am I pissed, you say? Well, I shall tell you. I mean, didn't that story up front there just kind of, I don't know, to me it doesn't sit well. You know why? Because I've sat through these legislative sessions at the state level again and again and again. It's like beating yourself in the head with a 2x4 for years on end. I'm just going to tell you that, you know, I was arguing with somebody on Facebook today. Somebody says, oh, the marijuana war is over. It's over. And everything sunk under my feet. And I had to begin making the argument that the war on marijuana is by no means over. It's not even close to being over. Are we reaching the hump where the majority of the battle has been waged? Perhaps. But the war on marijuana, which is really not a war on drugs or on marijuana, it's a war on people. It's a war on our own citizenry in this country. When we know that it's the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States, about 1 in 10 people use cannabis. So it doesn't make that much of a hill of beans to the other 9 in 10 people. And this is one of the problems with cannabis use as a whole in a mainstream way, or getting this done legally, is because you've got those other 9 in 10. You know, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest for, you know, whiteness or for you know, cavity protection, right? 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest. Well, if the 9 out of 10 happen to be the people that say, I don't care about cannabis, then the other one is really fighting an uphill battle, isn't he? Or she? The evidence on the wall says yes. All the charts point to yes. And I'm just going to say this one more time for you, because it seems to be clear to me that after arguing this person on Facebook, I mean, it wasn't a real argument. I was just trying to get him to understand. This was on somebody's Facebook page who's, got a family member with cancer. And we've been really supportive of this individual and their family member because she's been seeking out cannabis oil as a remedy and is currently using it. So when this person started posting about the war on marijuana is over, I said, no. By no means is it over. Tell me how it's over. Tell the people that got jailed today for running a dispensary that the war on medical marijuana is over. See, we don't have legalization in this state, in Michigan, yet. It's coming. Oh, we're going to be at the Bernie Sanders event. If you're in Michigan and you want to say hi and sign up for the MI Legalize thing, we're going to be out at the Bernie Sanders rally in East Lansing, Michigan. In fact, it's going to mark, gosh, how long ago has that been? It was 92? It was the election year, so it was really probably 91. I remember riding a Suzuki motorcycle, which I just bought recently. It was a nice Suzuki shaft drive motorcycle. It was like a 700cc motorcycle? All I know was the thing was fast. It was a little rice rocket. And I remember riding it over there, taking off my helmet, and walking over to the line, going to the Breslin Center, where people were there ready to greet President Clinton and Al Gore, who were then presidential and vice presidential candidates in the general election. This wasn't the primary election like it's going to be today, but this will be 92. You get 2002, 2012. So there's 20 years right there, isn't it? And then you got to 2016. So it's almost been, God, has it been that long ago? Has it been 25 years already? That I went and stood there and shook the hand of President Clinton and, them running candidate Clinton and then vice presidential candidate Al Gore, who I'd never known from a hole in the ground. I really didn't know much about Bill Clinton other than I had seen him on TV and I liked him. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. And after, 8 years of Reagan and another 4 years of the first George Bush, I was in a lot of pain. I was a student going to college, trying to make ends meet. Jobs were hard to come by. You had to have a job in order to get your student loan money. And good God, it just never ended. So it'll be an interesting time to go back to the I guess they weren't. Was it the Breslin Center? I don't think it was the Breslin Center that they did the rally at. It was right downtown in Lansing. This is, or in East Lansing, rather. This is not really downtown in East Lansing. It's the Breslin Center. It's still East Lansing, but it's just not downtown. This was, the Clinton Gore thing was right downtown. They were coming from a luncheon and then going over to the rally. And I wasn't at the luncheon or the rally. I was just at because they literally walked. So the Secret Service is chasing around these guys. I remember they picked up, because I had my helmet between my feet. They made me pick up my helmet and show them that there was nothing inside of it. They patted me down, and this all happened as the line of candidates was coming by. So there were Secret Service guys in front of the line of the candidates. There were two candidates, but there was personal protection detail around each of them. Then there was a line of like 2 or 3 Secret Service guys in front of all of that, and then 2 or 3 Secret Service guys behind it, and there was a couple more standing on the other side. I couldn't believe how many Secret Service guys there were. But they made me pick up my helmet, and they actually made me put it back behind me. And then they gave me a quick pat down, arms, legs, sides. And actually, one of them shoved me a little bit. And I was right there in the front of the line, so I don't know why he shoved me. But then the president came by, and he shook my hand, and I said, Bill Clinton, you've got my vote. And I did vote for him. And the same thing with Al Gore, but I was less impressed with Gore at the time. I'm actually more impressed with Al Gore at this point. But all that aside, Bernie Sanders rally Wednesday, I think it starts at 4 o'clock at the Breslin Center. We'll be down there with MI Legalize collecting signatures and then attending that rally because, despite the odds against Bernie right now, I'm still in his camp. I'm in the Bernie camp, and I'll be there. And I believe wholeheartedly that if Bernie does not win the nomination, because everybody's pointing to Hillary right now, she's got like 500 and some odd votes, delegate votes, and Bernie's got like 83 or something. It doesn't look good. But he's going to have a significant number. I mean, a very significant number, even if he loses the nomination on the Democratic side. And those significant votes are going to translate into some bargaining power at the convention. I believe there will be a large attempt, if Hillary ends up taking that nomination, by the Sanders delegation to shape the party platform and bend it that way. So hopefully Hillary will get the message if she takes this nomination, because if she picks up some Bernie traits, I'm all for Hillary. But right now, Hillary's not singing the song that Bernie is. She's just trying to ride in on the coattails of her former track laid, and her she got really smart during that Obama cycle. And back in 2008, she got smart. She figured out how Obama won that, and she went and backtracked to all those places and pasted over those holes. Now, Bernie's never run before, so he didn't have the chance to see the places that she failed at before, and she's really, I think, doing well at now. But there's going to be a modification of the platform come when they hit the convention. And you're going to see some people falling behind whoever's in front, and there's going to be some modification of the platform. It doesn't matter which one gets it. There's going to be some modification of that platform, and deservedly so. So I'm excited about all that. I'm excited about the year to come, but I'm not excited about that stuff going on in Georgia. I mean, by the way, the Facebook guy had to block me after 3 messages, and I said, look, because the example he held up was, the Dare thing. There was a posting by Dare the other day that somebody made a news story out of without ever calling Dare. They had apparently taken the term marijuana off the slippery slope list, the gateway drug list. And although that part of the website was changed, they by no means have stopped lying to kids about cannabis. By no means. He couldn't take it anymore, so I posted the correction by Dare that says, no, we haven't changed our position on this at all. We're still marching forth with marijuana is bad. It's dangerous. It's going to hurt you, kids. And then the guy had to block me because he couldn't take it anymore because I was proving him wrong. The war on marijuana is alive and well. This show is evidence of it. We'll continue with today's program. You've got the Full Melt Show here on thefullmelt.com.
You're getting the Full Melt.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
It's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
2571.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dort Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
You know, it's a leap year. So technically, I think it's a leap day. I saw something somewhere that said if there was no leap day or leap year, that today would be June something 2017. Imagine that. I've been arguing about the idea that the cannabis war is over, and it's not. And you've got some more evidence there in that thing going on in Georgia. I mean, these people in Georgia, it's one of the conservative places in the country, but I'm telling you, Utah's more conservative, and they're passing a medical marijuana bill. You know, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the LDS Church as they call it there, has backed off from its position that they won't rally against medical marijuana. But they're passing a full set of bills to cover medical cannabis in their state. It seems like all those southern states don't want to talk about oil only. Oh, you can't get high from that oil. Let's just do that. Oh, and we got to regulate it so that there can be no THC in that oil, because if there's THC, those kids might be getting high. It doesn't matter that they're having seizures and they're going to die. We can't letting them have none of that. You can't get a kid high. Well, what do you think they're giving them when they get all these kids with intractable epilepsy? What do you think they're giving them as an alternative to this cannabis oil? They're giving them heavy narcotics that's getting them extremely high. It's putting them out. You can overdose on those medications. You can't overdose on the cannabis. And it's extremely cautiously measured out anyways when you're talking about cannabis oil and kids. And let me just tell you something else. There's this fallacy that CBD by itself is the cure-all for everything when it comes to this stuff, and that's just not true. Cannabis it always has been and always will be a whole plant therapy when you talk about it medicinally. There's an entourage effect. You have to include all of the other cannabinoids. They're propped up. The initial components, the strongest components, the most prevalent components as cannabinoids in the cannabis plant is THC and CBD. Those two substances balance each other. CBD by itself is a heavy, heavy sedative. If you just take CBD and you don't mitigate it with THC, THC balances the heavy sedative effect of CBD. And CBD balances the psychoactive effect of THC. They were meant to be together for a reason. That's why they're both together in the plant. And then you've got, some, at least 68 other, or maybe a whole bunch more other cannabinoids. I think there's like 168 altogether, if I'm not mistaken, that all work synergistically with a dynamo effect. I mean, these things are all gearing together. They're carefully offset by one another. There's a balance of these things. And you're not going to get the effect you want out of either THC or CBD if you don't include the remainder of those cannabinoids. And then you've got terpenes and flavonoids. I mean, the understanding of the general public, including the core of the medical population, doesn't really have this down pat. They don't. If you ask a medical cannabis patient, what's a terpene? They'll look at you like you got three heads. Generally speaking, there are those of us in the know, there's a core of us that understand these facts and try to give that information to you freely, openly, and willingly. I posted a thing on my personal Facebook page, facebook.com/Steve Green with an extra E. And the article's on terpenes. And I had originally seen somebody posted a picture of a little vial. And the little vial had a slightly yellow casted or very lightly yellow casted, looked very like a very fluid liquid in it. And it was just that by itself. And I think, I don't know, I didn't get me to confirm it, but all indications are by the post that followed, that he's figured out a way to get the terpenes out of the cannabis plant. And that's what I think this was. I said, what is it? And he goes, delicious. And I said, really? I said, and somebody else said terpenes? And I'm like, aha, he's got the terpene key. Somehow, it looks like he's managed to find a way to... Geez, there goes the headphones. Hold on, we got a headphone emergency. So he found a way to isolate the terpenes. And I got to find out more information about that because what a fascinating thing. In a laboratory setting, isolating the terpenes and pulling them out of the cannabis plant. Now, why would somebody want to do that? Perhaps the terpenes are having an effect when added to other cannabinoids. Maybe they're putting them back in. So if you're just doing, say, an oil or a wax, many of those terpenes are missing. Terpenes and flavonoids are going to be scattered. They're going to be not represented in whole. It's not a full extract, right? Some of those things are missing. Some of those components are missing, but they found a way to get these out. So you want to add them back into that whole plant medicine, and I think that's a fascinating thing. Looks like he was working with these terpenes all alone, though. And I'll just remind you again, and I don't know that for sure, but just to be safe, you don't really want to isolate cannabis compounds. This is one of the reasons cannabis doesn't fit the AMA, or the American Medical Association's ideal of what a medicine is and how it's derived and how it's tested. Because in order to put something, and this is what you hear people always say, oh, we need more testing. You know why we need more testing? Because there's been none done. Everybody always says that. Oh, the Republicans particularly. Well, oh, we need more testing. Even Hillary was on that bandwagon. Well, let's see how this works out. Let's just look at it. We need some more details. No, we don't. We've known about cannabis for a very long time, and now that new technologies come around and allowed us to spread information, the most recent findings about cannabis are added to the old facts, and then when you look at them and compare them to what we knew before, you're like, wow, I made some progress since the last thing we knew. But just in the past few years, we've discovered the human endocannabinoid system, which we didn't even know existed before. Your body makes its own cannabinoids. Why? It's not trying to get you high. It's trying to make your body function. And this is why medical cannabis works as a medicine, because in the places where those cannabinoids are absent or are not working properly because the system's damaged or you can't produce them for whatever reason, your endocannabinoid system is not functioning properly, you're going to need to replace them. And it's my personal belief, you can just put this in as a side note because it's a whole different subject, but it's my personal belief that the 1 in 10 people that seek out cannabis on their own, medicinally, they seek this out. They don't even know necessarily. Some of the people consider they're seeking it out recreationally, but they're really finding a solution. They're self-medicating because their own human endocannabinoid system, what's internally working to make cannabinoids to make certain parts of their body function properly, are damaged. They're missing. That's what I think draws people towards cannabis, because once they've had access to it and it regulates their system properly again, whatever the malady was as a result of the deficiency goes away. And who's not going to try and maintain that? Yet here the federal government, who's really only interested in this, is not public safety. It's the production of capital. It's the making of money. Look, if this was about public safety, you'd allow some federal trials on this. You'd allow some studies about this that don't include isolating compounds that are synthetically generated in the laboratory. You know why they want you to do that? Because they don't want you growing that cannabis plant, because it's interrupting their money flow. The more opportunity that Americans have to plant cannabis and hemp in this country, the more businessmen who are now in control of the politics in this country get pissed off because you're screwing with their cash flow. That's what all this is mostly about. The rest of this subject about the war on cannabis has always been about the control and manipulation of minority population. It's always been about that. It started out as that, and it was used as a tool to make money for people. That's the big lie about cannabis. Cannabis is not a dangerous substance in any form. Even in concentrate, it's certainly just not dangerous. And the chances, somebody's going to get high and jump off a building, they're going to try and flap their wings, and they're going to fall straight to the ground, and they're going to call an ambulance and scrape them up. No. Somebody who's done a little bit too much cannabis generally doesn't have the opportunity to do that because they end up going to sleep. Just truth. Just speaking the truth. The DUI laws, they're all, everybody wants to argue that let's regulate cannabis like alcohol. Well, what will be the point in that? I suppose any regulation is better than none. No regulation means you're prohibiting it, and that just produces a black market, and we send billions of dollars to our foreign neighbors every year that never comes back because the federal government wants to maintain this prohibition and cash in on it. The evidence, the proof that there's medical efficacy in cannabis is held in the federal patent. Look it up, 6630507. I'm going to make shirts with that number on it, 6630507. Have people ask about what that is. Because people don't know that the federal government has a patent on the neuroprotective qualities of THC and CBD. What does that mean? Well, it means that they've discovered that there is a physical reaction which is beneficial in the way of protecting your nervous system. This is why they're looking into it for things like Alzheimer's and other brain diseases, CTE, this thing that professional football players experience from repetitive concussion injuries. Just little ones add up, damage the brain. CTE is likely to be prevented or mitigated in way of its detrimental effect on the human brain. And it's not just the brain from the standpoint of a dying brain or a brain that's been damaged physically. It might have been damaged chemically. In the instance of Christian Bogner, who, by the way, is a doctor, he's an MD here in Michigan. I believe he's delivering children at a local hospital. Dr. Bogner's put together a fascinating article, and he's published it, and it's called Autism Decoded. We did a 2-hour show with Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Dr. Bogner, talking about the relationship, and we did this last summer, the relationship between autism, cannabis, and GMO foods. And it starts out in a thumbshell. What it means is that there are great indicators, scientific indicators, found through study by Dr. Seneff, that show that there's a significant relationship between these three things, actually 4 things. Dr. Bogner brings in cannabis as a way to reverse autistic effects in children. And the way he goes about explaining this is if the brain is not damaged, it's been poisoned. It's been poisoned by a substance called glutamate, which exterior to the cell wall, he'll tell you, in the neuron, is toxic. And then children come along and get an injection directly into their bloodstream, goes right to the brain, of concentrated glutamate. Glutamate is the substrate that the MMR vaccine lives in, and amongst a bunch of other vaccines have the same substrate, glutamate. It's the fuel. It's the food. It's a live virus. It's got to live on something, and it's living off the glutamate. These kids are ending up in a situation where they've been exposed to GMO foods which have glyphosate sprayed on them. The glyphosate is Roundup. It's the stuff that you spray in the sidewalk cracks. So you might as well pick up a bottle of Roundup and take your kid's bottle and unscrew the nipple off the top and spray a few sprays of that Roundup directly into the formula. Put it back on and give it to them, because that's what you're doing. That GMO soy product that you've got in what you're buying off the store shelf as a soy-based milk formula, it's a formula. It's an infant formula, but it's made with soy. And the soy is grown in a seed-to-sale kind of way, where Monsanto owns both the seeds and the thing that they've been genetically altered to avoid, which is glyphosate. They're not affected by glyphosate. Glyphosate is a component of Agent Orange, for crying out loud. And they're spraying it on plants to prevent weeds. But if you spray it on the plant that hasn't been altered genetically to be resistant to glyphosate or to avoid its effects, you're going to die because glyphosate kills all plant material. They've altered the gene so that it's not killed by the glyphosate. It does something else with it. But in the meanwhile, there's a residual glyphosate present in the food supply after you produce the food. It's not going away. It's still in the food. And so it's residual, but the CDC says it's negligible. It doesn't have any harmful effect on the human population. Well, guess what? If glyphosate kills all bacteria, because it does, it kills any kind of plant, bacteria in the plant kingdom. And you need healthy gut bacteria in order to maintain a normal digestive system, and you're putting this stuff into the kid's gut. Guess what? That glyphosate chelates metals. It chelates iron. It chelates manganese. It chelates copper. I mean, these are all necessary mineral trace elements that you need for proper digestion and human health. You have to be able to absorb these things into your diet. But that glyphosate in the residual food supply is chelating those metals, making them so that they're unabsorbable by the body. It's lumping them together. It's making it too big to pass through the membrane. It's got to get through to get into your body. And that glutamate that's in the brain now toxic because you've injected it directly into the kid, and the kid doesn't have any glutamate, or the kid doesn't have any manganese to counteract that glutamate. And it's causing the kids to have this toxic setup for autism. It's a fascinating subject. Check out the show. If you toggle back in our show history, look for GMO foods, Roundup, and autism, and then look up and listen to that 2-hour show. And then Dr. Bogner's got now an accompanying article that explains much of the same thing and in more detail. But see, he's saying that CBD and THC work together synergistically in a cannabis oil sort of way to go into the autistic brain and calm down the inflammation. First, it re-regulates. It goes to one of the neurons' receptors and says, hey, re-regulate. Because right now they're all firing at 100%, all these brain cells. Regulate it back to normal. That reverses the condition, but then you've got this inflammation left over by that cell working too hard, going crazy, going nuts. All the inflammation that's caused by that is part of what's causing this autistic spectral condition, and genetics play a factor in it too. But that autistic spectral condition can be reversed because that CBD is going in and reversing that inflammation, thereby making an autistic child more normal.
Getting the full melt.
I've seen things no man should bear, and those that every man should dare. From the beaches of Normandy to the far reaches of the earth. In my life, I have lived millions of lives. I've outrun robots and danced with dinosaurs. I've faced the faces of fear and fortitude and witnessed great beauty in the making. I've kept the company of kings and queens, but I'm no royalty or saint. I've traveled, trekked, wandered, and roamed, only to find myself right where I belong.
Jeep. See your authorized Jeep retailer for details on how you can become a Jeep owner.
We ask people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Listen to the Full Melt Show weekdays, Monday through Friday, right here at thefullmelt.com. At the top of the page, you can subscribe to our iTunes link. Just click on it and subscribe. It's that simple. Like us at Facebook and Twitter. Those links also available at the top of thefullmelt.com's webpage. Got exciting stuff coming up this year, but most of it's all wrapped up in politics. I mean, the politics are dancing, aren't they? And so I guess a lot of the points that I'm making on this program are going to be highlighted in these political arguments state to state and then also at the federal government level. I'm going to go whole in here and just tell you, I don't believe in any way, shape, or form if the political pundits who are right now placing their bets on the two nominees for both parties being Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, that if that takes place, there's not a chance in hell that there will be a President Trump. Not a flying chance in hell. These people are not going to hire that buffoon who happens to be rather racist. I mean, he's clearly a racist guy. He's got ideas that really punch the heart of what people want to bitch about, mostly on the conservative end of things. Wouldn't it be fascinating if at some point along the line, Hillary had some inkling or in the know that she was more than likely going to carry off this nomination, and that could it be because, you know, Clinton and Trump have history. I mean, Donald Trump was at Hillary Clinton's. Hillary Clinton was at Donald Trump's wedding by invite. They're both New Yorkers. Well, at least now. There's going to be some interaction here. Wouldn't it be interesting if Hillary made a deal with Trump to go screw up the Republican Party so that she would have an easier ride in? See, if Hillary was up against a Romney or one of those kind of characters, she might have a real fight on her hands. I'm just telling you right here and now that there's no possible way that I can see from this standpoint, and I've got a pretty clear vision on this, that I can see there's no pathway for Donald Trump to be elected president in the general election. He's only gaining this support on the conservative side of things, and the more he talks, the more he pisses off the liberal side, because he's making such crazy statements. He's making such a mockery of the political system. The Republicans, the core Republicans, are falling apart. He's like a hammer on their already fragile institution that wasn't a big enough umbrella to get them elected the last two presidential cycles. You have to have a big political tent if you intend to get something done and get into Washington to control the country, to be the commander-in-chief, to be our president. Hail to the chief. It's a long, hard-fought battle, and it gets more and more ridiculous each cycle. More money gets spent, the politics get dirtier, the mudslinging gets heavier. When does the tipping point happen to where these things are completely obscene? I think it's now. I think some of the stuff literally has been obscene that's come out of Trump's mouth. You'll never see that stuff come out of Clinton. Unless you're in a private affair and there's nobody else, there's no media attending. You might see something smirk out of her then, but she's too politically polished to let the F word fly or let the P word fly. You're not going to say Donald Trump. You're not going to hear her say Donald Trump's a pussy. It's not going to happen. You might hear Trump make a reference about Hillary's P. It would not surprise me at all. Oh, I don't talk that way anymore. Well, what made you change your mind about that kind of language? You know what you do is you use it cleverly. Hey, I'm not going to say that Hillary Clinton's a pussy. I'm not going to say that. Well, you just did, Trump. He says he's not going to say it, and he'll stand back later and say, I said I wasn't going to say that, and I didn't. No, you clearly did. You just said it in a context that says you're not going to say it when you were saying it as you were putting it in context. It makes you want to beat your head against the wall. At least it does me. Can't take it anymore. I try to watch some of these debates. I mean, they're entertaining. But what isn't entertaining is just demeaning. I don't know, there's got to be some better word. There's none. They're all escaping me now, the words to describe such interplay, such horseplay. I mean, when you can't talk about substance, let's pick on each other. And they're picking on each other in such a way. I mean, let's just look at this a little closer. So it wouldn't surprise me, given the idea that, Trump's already made mention that he's going to pick a vice presidential running mate if he gets the nomination. He's going to pick a vice presidential running mate that is in politics. Now, why do you think that somebody like Chris Christie, who's completely against cannabis, medical or otherwise, he's bought fully into that boat, the whole prohibition boat, because he's a former prosecutor. He understands the leverage that gives police, and he's not going to want to try and take it away from them. They're not using that as a way to promote public safety, by the way. They're not using the money they're making in a way that promotes public safety. They're using it to prop up their department. The public safety wouldn't exist if they didn't have the money coming in from prohibition. And they don't want to give it to them in the form of legitimate tax dollars, just a legitimate paycheck. Here's some money to fund your department. Go to work. Go enforce the laws. They don't want to do that because it's too expensive. They don't want to show you how much it costs to employ a law enforcement agency with all that gadgetry and gear and the people that install it, maintain it, and then operate it. The training that's necessary to get in place, the legislative stuff that has to be done to get those things in place. It's extremely expensive. And they don't want to really reveal to you how much it costs to maintain a police department, so they hide it. And they don't pass on taxes. They don't tax you and say this is going to the police department. What they do instead is they give incentive to the police to go out and use these policies to take home your money. Anything that's of any value to you, they'll just take it. They'll never charge you because by virtue of the idea that you don't have any money left to post a bond with, you'll never get it back because you'll never see a day in court. They're not charging you criminally, and they're not charging you civilly. They're charging your money and your goods. They're charging all that stuff civilly, saying that somehow was involved in a crime. They're accusing your stuff of being proceeds or involvement in crime without ever having to prove it. The burden of proof is on you to get it back. That's how they've turned jurisprudence in this country on its head. They've turned the idea of innocent until proven guilty by using this idea that we're charging an inanimate object with involvement in a crime. I see the idea that you could charge property with being involved in a crime without charging the person who's initiating the crime because the property can't do it by itself. That it's just a farce. It's just nothing more than a farce. So you got Chris Christie running with, I think, Donald Trump. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Donald Trump sees Chris Christie as a method by which he can crack that political whip and get some stuff done because he's clueless. He's never been involved in government. He's made friends with government. He's paid off government. He's greased government. But he's never run it. Chris Christie has. He's closed bridges, just for example. And he could clearly just close a bridge by standing in any lane. He would occupy both. So that's what I think is going on. See if my prediction doesn't come true. Nobody said it yet on TV, but I think if Trump gets the nomination, and I don't see any way he's not, I think he's going to bury Rubio where he belongs, that little punk, that little loudmouth pipsqueak punk. I've lost any and all respect for Marco Rubio. And I never had any respect in the first place for Senator Cruz. What a complete flaming jackass. So I think those guys are both going to get buried in this tsunami. They're going to get drowned. by the giant tidal wave that is Donald Trump. And the core Republicans are shaking in their boots right now. The mainstream party is fractured and dismantling over the likes of Donald Trump. And I say welcome to it, because that party is a joke in the first place. And I don't think it much has to do with party. I think it has to do with the people that are running the party. So all Donald Trump did was step into a big, giant, chaotic storm and make it more chaotic and more stormy. And he's made it unpalatable for the people who occupied these positions in previous days and years to stay in the game. You're seeing mainstream political Republicans speak out against Trump and say, look, I don't care if he does get the nomination of our party. Look, who was it? Who was that? The other guy, I can't stand him because he's such a freaking moron and he's a crook. Oh, what's the senator's name? It's escaping me now. It's not the senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell. He's another jackass. It's it's escaping me. I got to look him up now because I can't stand it. So, but the comment that he made on television is he says, "My party's gone." I'm just going to put the quote in there. He said, "My party's gone batshit crazy. It's Lindsey Graham." It's crazy you can put in a quote and get the person that said it. Google's that good. Lindsey Graham, my party's gone batshit crazy. And he's right. But the problem is, your party's always been batshit crazy. It's just that the crazy came out of the batshit. And that's all I got to say about that, says Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest, run! Lindsey Graham is coming to get you. Mitch McConnell is coming to take over the planet with the aliens. That's what's going on in this country. We're out of time. We got a break. So when we get back from this break, going to run through a couple of items in the news. Amongst them, what is in the news? Well, let me just tell you, there are some obvious points that we got to touch on. And one of them, I almost want to do that other story that we talked about at the top of the hour, but we've already done it. Marijuana sales tricky for Hawaii, and some other facts and figures that you're going to find fascinating just after the break. Stand by.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The No-Smell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a no-smell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about no-smell technology at nosmell.com.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Hey, we're on the verge of getting some really awesome interviews from some fascinating people, famous people. I'll look forward to some changes to the show a little bit, just tiny changes, tweaking the show a little bit, and getting back into some more interviews. I've had no chance to line those up recently. And I think there's just a surplus of people now that I can get on the phone if I'm able to get a hold of them. And so I'm making some contact with some people now. And I'm excited to bring that to you sometime here in the near future. Medical marijuana sales could generate up to $63 million annually. A report claims that, according to mlive.com. And we're talking about Michigan. Nothing new there. We knew that this has always been something the state could make some good money off of, especially in this state. There's a lot of cannabis people in Michigan, both recreational and certainly medical. I mean, the numbers don't lie when you look at the website. The numbers haven't gone down, really. They've kind of maintained the same and increased a little bit with the number of users. The people who've been impacted most are the caregivers. More on that coming up in future days. There was a big event down in, Fort Worth, Texas? That happened. And actually, some of these interviews are maybe coming out from that location. I'll just give you a heads up on that if you want to get a sneak peek on interviews. See who was out at the Fort Worth medical marijuana event. That might give you a sneak peek into there. The Tea Party's been staging a debate on marijuana legalization in Arizona. It's always funny when you talk about the Tea Party, because they're part of the crazy that came out of the batshit in the Republican Party, really. The Tea Party was very clever in finding ways to take over the Republican Party, because if you look at the Tea Party people, they're very wealthy Americans, very wealthy conservatives, who decided that the party was too moderate. It was too mainstream. They wanted to take it to the right further than it already is. And they couldn't get mainstream Republicans to make that move. So you know what they did? They took over the Republican Party. They did it in a clever way. They started applying for one of the easiest targets in any political realm in this country, and that is precinct delegates. I suggested to the cannabis community long ago that if we organized on a national level, which is nearly impossible to do because, hell, we can't get people organized in a state level. And it's not because it's cannabis. It's because too many people want to protect too many portions of their own survival. So anytime modification gets done, you see the splintering happen inside of just each state. How can we get a national consensus on the subject of marijuana? Well, you do it through programs like this. You do it through political action. You do it through grassroots moving. And the only way you can do that is to reach a large audience at the same time, which programs like this do. Trying to get a national consensus together of people in the pro-cannabis movement to take over precinct delegate positions being left behind by the thousands. You'd be surprised how many lacking precinct delegates there are, where nobody's run for the office. Precinct delegates at the state level get to really help shape policy platforms. You see, precinct delegates get to go to the state conventions and vote on issues and participate in again, shaping the party's platform. So what happened with the Republicans is that's exactly what the Tea Party people did. They found that weakness in the system and exploited it because there's nobody running for precinct delegate. And that's how they managed to take this thing over, because they get to choose ultimately who from their party ends up on the ballot. And rather than choosing a mainstream moderate Republican, they would choose the far right Tea Party person. And that's who they put in place. They knocked out the regular candidate, the mainstream moderate candidate. They knocked that Republican out of place, didn't let him be on the ballot because the delegates, the precinct delegates said, this is who we want to represent this turf in this area. And they did that all across the country successfully and virtually held the Republican Party hostage. And this is why you see people like John Boehner stepping down, because he couldn't survive the fracture in his own party. He couldn't control his own caucus because you got them warring with each other inside the House of Representatives, literally warring with each other. Boehner started crying, ran away like a baby girl. And now you got this other guy in there. We'll leave him for the future because he's going to be around after the presidential election. And I have no idea what's going to happen to Congress this election cycle. But something's going to change with congressional seats. I'm hoping that people haven't been so focused on the presidential outcome that, let's say, the Democrats take this again, and I think they're going to. I don't see there's any way that they cannot take this over if Trump is the nominee on the Republican side. Even the people in the heart, the core of the Republican Party, all the people who've been controlling this party for the past 20 years are in the know themselves, understanding that Trump is a losing position for their platform. Not only are they breaking apart, he's literally jackhammering the institution apart, leaving it in splinters, shatters. It's terrible to watch. But frankly, I'm glad, because those people are complete jackasses, and they had evil intent. They want to claim that this is all about, reforming government, making it smaller, leaner, more efficient, getting government out of your lives. If they wanted government out of your lives, they wouldn't be knocking on your door, breaking it down with a raid team over a plant. What a terrible waste of public resources. It's just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to see your paycheck get smaller, more jobs leave the country, try and get a Republican back in the presidential seat, because that's exactly what they intend to do. Oh, they'll lie all day and say that they're going to create jobs and stimulate the economy and things are going to trickle down, and you got to unleash business from the burden of taxation so that the economic engine of America can fire up again. It's always been on fire. It's being killed. It's being killed routinely by people trying to squeeze too much money out of it. If you don't give money to a consuming population, this economy is entirely consumer-based. The economic engine of this country is driven no longer by manufacturing, but by consumption. And if you don't pay enough people to consume the things that are out on the market, your only opportunity for economic growth or just sustaining the population as it grows is through export. And it's really expensive for these countries who routinely devalue their currencies so that these products are too expensive in their country. You can't buy them because nobody can afford them. Makes it really beneficial, though, for those countries to steal American jobs. All that manufacturing has been exported to mostly China and Mexico. The largest part of industry has gone to China and Mexico, some to other countries. Some to other countries with higher levels of taxation, mind you. The taxes are higher, but they're still getting cheap labor. That's what matters to these businessmen. How little can you pay people to do all the work necessary to make your products and sell them? It's a terrible state of affairs in this country. And I'm glad to see most of that go away. And not to mention, I'm hoping that Bernie Sanders can reform the Democratic Party enough so that if they get this nomination and then ultimately win against what is apparently the nominee in the Republican side, which is going to be Trump. If they do that winning, hopefully they'll start to break apart some of these so-called free trade agreements, because they're not free trade. They're completely unbalanced, unfair trade. Trump's right about the trade deficit with Mexico, the trade deficit with China. I mean, It's always going to be that way as long as the people there can't afford the products but need the jobs. We'll export our jobs there and let Americans suffer in the process. Ultimately, if we keep doing that, it's not a sustainable model. Ultimately, you'll hollow out the core of the American economy and ship it overseas. There'll be nobody left here to buy American products or any other products for that matter because there won't be anybody with a job that makes enough money to be able to afford any of it. Until tomorrow, Tuesday, back to the regular work week, I'm Steve Green for The Full Melt Show. We'll see you then.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.